What we're seeking for in attachment is a secure attachment, right? Where we have a strong sense of self, and therefore we're able to have a strong sense of connection within a relationship. And truly, one of the best ways to work on getting that secure attachment is through the practice of detachment. And detachment is really, when it comes down to it, from a psychological perspective, it is like the sense of freedom you have in not needing to control or know or understand someone else's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions. And so detachment is this art of practicing a release of not needing this external validation of other people's wants, needs, choices, decisions, or behaviors.
Hi, everyone. This is the Ego Project, and I am Lisa Heidle, and I am here with my co-host,
Cristine Seidell, and today's topic is going to be about detachment.
That's a good topic, and one that a lot of people have a lot of confusion around. Yeah, so I'm excited, including myself.
Okay. As we all do, right? As we all do. We grow in it, evidently. So.
Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about how we are restructuring things just a little bit for our listeners and what else we're offering, which is very exciting. We have a new offering for you. So today, when we talk about detachment, we're going to have a shorter podcast, shorter episode. We're going to just jump right into the nuts and bolts of detachment. We're going to talk about the exact meaning of it, attachment and dissociation, what the ego, especially that wounded part of our egos, right, thinks about detachment, and how detachment can actually improve our lives with deeper connections with others and with ourselves, which is right. You think it's something's wrong with that,
right.
But it's not.
Right.
It's exactly how it works. And then we are now offering membership for the Ego Project. In this membership, when you join us, we will be digging deeper into our own personal relationship with all topics, including detachment.
Yeah.
And so I'll be discussing areas in my life where I struggle with healthy detachment and what I've done to heal that wound and how it's improved my life. And Cristine will be doing that as well. And then we'll be offering some tips and techniques that you can use to better have detachment in your life so that you can improve your relationships and projects and everything else across the board. Anything else you add to that, Cristine?
No, I think it's just going to be a great place to, join community and be able to just take a deeper dive into some of these topics and find ways to not only process, but also to do that healing work that I think we're all kind of waking up and as a collective wanting to do. So I think it's going to be a great place for us to just join community and grow and change in the ways that feel right for us.
I think so too. Plus, we're going to have other perks. Cristine and I will be showing up periodically. We will be teaching some workshops. We'll be offering you some other tips and techniques over there to do some ego healing. So and that could be very exciting. I'm picturing a writing workshop. And our ego gets in the way sometimes with our creativity. So that's just one idea I'm banding about. What about you, Cristine?
Yeah, I mean, I just love being in community with people and collaborating and just hearing people's stories. I think that that's just, as a therapist, of course, that's, something that lights me up. But I think that there's so much healing power within being witnessed and being seen and heard. And I'm just excited to be able to be in that space with our listeners and our watchers because, it just changes the dynamic that we get to have with them. So.
Great. Oh, so excited. All right. So everyone, all that information will be in the show notes.
Yes.
We are ready to get started, Cristine.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get started.
All right. So we are talking about detachment and we have to jump right in with Cristine. What is detachment?
Well, I think it's, what's awesome is we're having this conversation also on the heels of several of the conversations recently on the Ego Project where we were talking about attachment and how we talked about attachment shows up in a lot of different ways. But, really what attachment we're seeking for an attachment is a secure attachment, right? Where we have a strong sense of self, and therefore we're able to have a strong sense of connection within a relationship. And truly, one of the best ways to work on getting that secure attachment is through the practice of detachment. And detachment is really, when it comes down to it, from a psychological perspective, it is like the sense of freedom you have in not needing to control or know or understand someone else's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, decisions. And so detachment is this art of practicing a release of not needing this external validation of other people's wants, needs, choices, decisions, or behaviors, that you are objectively stepping away to not have whatever's going on with them make meaning for you.
So would you say that it's a disconnect from outcome?
Yes, a disconnect from outcome and also a disconnect from understanding. Sometimes people will do things that we don't understand. And when we are overly attached to that, we will continue to show up to try to have the same conversation over and over and over again, trying to convince this person. I mean, the politics right now in our country is a great example of how, this deep need to control or influence or understand somebody else's perspective or somebody else's behavior. So it's not necessarily the outcome, but also just the understanding or trying to convince somebody else of that as well.
Okay, that's great. And so we hear the word detachment a lot. It's right now one of those key phrases we're hearing. And a lot of what I'm hearing after they throw out the word detachment is a description that actually sounds like dissociation to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's some confusion between the two. And can you speak to that? And then I'll share a little bit of my thoughts on what detachment is through a spiritual lens. But can you go ahead and share what is the difference between detachment and dissociation?
Yeah, detachment is honestly like more of a conscious choice that you are recognizing, you are expanding more of your energy into a space that it doesn't belong, right? Or that it's not serving you. And so it is a conscious choice to bring your power kind of back to yourself and emotionally release the effects that external thing has on you. So for an example would be, if you're in a family system and somebody within the family is deciding to make a decision for themselves that you don't agree with, not being attached would be ruminating on it, trying to have these conversations with them over and over again, talking to your partner about it ad nauseum, right? Like just being energetically attached to whatever is going on with them. Detachment would be looking at that this is their decision to make for themselves, that it does not have any meaning about you, and removing yourself from the need to understand or influence or control whatever decision making, and that you can move in and out of relationship with this person as long as it's respectful, right? And so detachment is this conscious choice of pulling your power back to yourself and looking at it objectively, not looking at it from this lens of having meaning about you. Now, disassociation is more of a subconscious response to the ego's inability to really process what is actually occurring, or the mind's subconscious or conscious able to process what's going on. So we see disassociation, especially when our nervous system is just very dysregulated, either overly dorsal, meaning it's not really processing information in a timely way, or it's hypervigilant, meaning it's constantly processing information. And so disassociation is actually kind of a subconscious response to the mind not being able to really process things from a reality perspective. It's almost it's a coping skill that the brain uses when it's just really unable to process because the nervous system is just completely dysregulated. And so disassociating can be anything from just like staring, as you're driving, a regular, route, because it's so familiar that your brain just kind of disassociates and goes into almost a trance-like state. And you're like, oh, I don't even remember like how I got here. Or it could be like, coming home from work and your kids are around you and you're just scrolling on your phone because you really can't process any more stimuli. So disassociating is not really this conscious choice of seeing things from this reality perspective and coming back to self and objectively processing. It's almost a way of just allowing the mind and the body to somehow find homeostasis for a moment, because when you're conscious, there's just too much information, there's too much stimuli, the nervous system's too dysregulated to be able to process things consciously.
Thank you for sharing that. My understanding with detachment is, from a spiritual viewpoint, is it's actually a deeper relationship with self. And everything that you just described there is you're refocusing on you.
Mm-hmm.
You're detached from what is happening around you. Like you said, if this family member is on their own journey and they're doing something that you don't approve of, or you don't, think they should be doing, instead of trying to convince them of your viewpoint, you just say, okay, why is this triggering me?
Yeah.
Why am I looking at this? So you detach from that energetic experience, relational experience, and you go inward. And that, so to me, that's where you get that deeper relationship with self, because when you detach from the external, you then have space and energy to go internal. So is that something that you see through therapy as well?
Yes, and I think that's a great way of expressing it. Detachment is what allows you to come back to self. It allows you to come back into relationship with yourself. When we were talking about a secure attachments build this concept of interdependence, meaning we have these individual experiences, individual lives and experiences, and then we come to relationship, and in connection we share that with each other, and we feel safe enough to go back and have these interpersonal experiences, and then we come back to connection, right? Detachment is so important there, because when you separate, you have to come back to self, right? If you're constantly still in the relationship, you're not coming back to self. And so, yes, detachment is this practice of being able to come and pull your power back, be back in relationship with yourself, hear yourself, feel yourself without the influences or the projection of whatever is going on in this external situation.
Thank you. The idea of detachment, I hear some phrasing, I don't care what anyone thinks, I'm detached. That to me is not attachment.
Right.
That's
right. Yeah.
Like you're really attached.
Right. Like your proclamation alone has some projection of you do care. So
yeah. And so that's one phrase that we hear a lot. We hear also, if I detach, I won't care anymore. I won't try anymore. I'll give up.
Yeah.
And once again, you're still attached.
Right. Because you're navigating whatever this dynamic is from a place of avoidance or from a place of projection. Or, it can also go into blame shifting. Like if we don't really take accountability for self and like detaching and coming back to relationship from self, we're really, probably just avoiding more than anything. And so detachment is really this conscious awareness of where where this belongs to somebody else. This is somebody else's experience. This is somebody else's behavior. This is somebody else's desire, wants, needs, whatever. And it's a reflection of them. It's not a reflection of me. And so I need to come back to self so that I'm not making meaning of that, you know. And when we become avoidant, and we're looking like we're detached, we're not making this conscious decision to come back to self. And the reason why that's so good is it's also respecting somebody else too. It's like I see you and I hear you and I'm witnessing you for your own decisions, desires, and behaviors right now. And if I may agree or not agree with them, but I'm respecting them as yours. I'm not projecting myself into them. And avoidance is just kind of like whatevs, you know, and that doesn't feel respectful.
Thank you. I'm seeing this through the lens for myself of projects.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm a project-based worker, and
Right.
which, you know, solopreneur. So I, you know, start one project, I work it through completion, and then I move on to the next one. Well, I have an expectation when I start a project of what I hope to create within the project, you know, kind of like on the journey, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, how it ends up, it may look very different than what I initially had planned. And if I am resistant to the creative process, allowing it to become what it's supposed to be,
right,
too attached to outcome with that.
Yeah.
And so I have to have a healthy detachment in order to allow a creative project to bloom into what it's meant to be. And we can even translate to relationships.
Yes. That's a great,
you know, how often do we get into a relationship and expect it to be this, it's supposed to be this one thing, and in actuality it was a catalyst for something else. And I think that's such a beautiful way to navigate the world, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. It's a lived experience. That's what life is, right?
Yeah, and that's why it's so important in relationship, is because detachment, the practice of conscious detachment, allows you to sit with someone and in their autonomy and in their agency, genuinely show you who they are and what they want and what they need, right? And you get to meet them in that place. And then you get to sit and have that you know, agency and autonomy with them, and you get to have this place of reciprocity of is this a yes or is this a no for me. And a lot of people will be so attached to a particular outcome or the way that they think a relationship should look like, and they're sitting with this attachment to that. And that's where we get a lot of codependent type of tendencies within relationships, because we're trying to get there. We're trying to make them this, and rather than being, you know, being in detachment regularly, when we need to be able to see our partner or our coworker or whatever from a lens of agency and autonomy. And then we can make, like you said, through the creative process, we pivot or we shift or we change so that we allow the relationship to become what it's supposed to be, not what we are wanting it to be, or not what we think it should be.
And that's our wounded ego, right? It's making the demands of, you know, this is the only way this is going to happen, is the way I envision it. And when we get to attach, which I do, which we'll be discussing in the membership episode, you know, continued conversation that we have through the membership, I get dogged.
Yes.
So, and that's my ego. So can you speak a little bit about when our wounded aspects of our ego get involved? And to attach, how can we navigate that?
You know, I mean, fundamentally, the ego is our collection of our beliefs of ourselves, right? So it truly is what is telling us who we are, the good parts and the not so good parts, right? So in detachment or becoming overly attached, The ego is developing some meaning around what somebody else is thinking, doing, believing, behaving, like whatever this external situation is. From a wounded lens, the ego is believing that that must mean something about me, right? If my child, makes the choice or comes out as gay, that must mean something about me. If my partner makes this, that, or the other decision, that must mean something about me. And so in all relationships, especially, and projects or the work we put out in this world, we have this like really desperate belief around this has some meaning about me. And in some ways, like projects and creative things, it is a reflection of some parts of you or this, that, and the other. But in our relationships, we have to understand that there really, truly is interdependence. And so what somebody else chooses or thinks or believes or whatever cannot be so attached to our value, worth, understanding, the reflection of who we are. And detachment is this ability to see a wound, if there is some belief or meaning that we're attaching to something, and clear and release that so that we can come back to self and hear what it is that we need to hear. Not what we think people are saying or doing or whatever, but what we need to hear.
So, Cristine, in what type of situations or dynamics do you see people struggling with detachment?
Oftentimes, we see a lot of people that may be struggling with like codependency. So anything like, people pleasing or over functioning or being, way more self-sufficient or, using defense mechanisms such as like stonewalling or, being, overly sensitive to other people's conversations. So a lot of this work, when I'm working with clients in codependency recovery, one of the first things that we have to practice is the art of detachment.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's the perfect place for us to go ahead and end this episode on detachment. And if you want to come with us over to the membership to hear some areas that Cristine and I have struggled with detachment, codependency, just saying,
Yes.
control, throw some words out.
Yes,
Speaking for me, speaking not only for myself.
No, I've got my card carrying recovery, codependency recovery card as well.
And we're going to really delve into that. And then we're also going to give you some tips and techniques that you can use to healthily detach from situations in your life, whether it's relationships, projects, ideas, habits, belief systems about others and yourselves. And that way you can have some takeaways. So if this is where we leave you today, we will see you on the next episode of the Ego Project. And if you're going to join us in the membership, we would love to see you over there.
Love it.
All right. Make sure to like and subscribe, everyone. See you next time.
Take care.